Hey everyone, Pastor Josh here, and welcome to our Stronger Marriage podcast, where my wife, Sharon, and I answer questions sent in from our listeners. Today's focus is on the wife's role as helper, and we got a ton of great questions to get into, like how do I point out blind spots in my husband's life when he gets defensive? What do I do if I'm struggling with the idea of submission? This from a dude as a single man. How do I recognize inner beauty and quiet strength in the life of a woman I'm considering for marriage? And from a single gal, how do I cultivate quiet strength if I'm naturally loud and slightly obnoxious? Gonna get spicy, all that and more coming up next on the Stronger Marriage podcast. Okay, well, we got a lot of questions this week, and to be honest, some of them are very intimidating. Mm-hmm. This feels like maybe the hardest one we've done yet.
Agree.
And I think most of the questions were from ladies, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a podcast where we're answering your questions in relationship to the sermon from Sunday,
right,
which was unpacking the wife's role in the marriage as helper.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
You're first, actually. I get to ask the first one.
Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
you ready?
Lord help us.
Here we go.
Here we go.
In the sermon, they're referring to that. The phrase pointing out blind spots was used. Please share examples of how to point out blind spots or point things out to your husband, big concerns and little ones, in a way that isn't interpreted as disrespectful or causes him to be defensive. When a man is struggling with self-esteem already, it seems difficult to have healthy discussions.
So they're asking me how you've done that?
I think they're asking, how do you do that? You could say, well, sure. You could say how I've done it, but you could say also just in general, as a man, from a man's perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if I was counseling this couple, if they were in my office, I would want to talk with both of them, and I would want to ask the husband, what are things that your wife does that make you feel defensive? And if he says, she yells at me and cusses at me and tells me I suck and criticizes my every move, and if I were to ask the wife, is that true? And she says yes, then we have identified the problem.
Yes.
If he says, well, sometimes she expresses concerns and it bugs me, and I ask, did she do it in a humble, godly way? And if he stumbles around, okay, maybe you're unnecessarily being defensive in ways that you shouldn't. And so it's a both and issue in terms of it's a husband issue and a wife issue. So let me talk to the guy. I hope he's listening, or men are listening.
Right.
We have to demonstrate to our wife a measure of humility and openness that invites their help. So God looked at you as the only thing in creation he had made in paradise, pre-fall garden state. He looked at you and said, it's not tov, it's not good.
Right.
Meaning you are inherently incomplete in yourself, which is why God made for you a helper. And so part of the wisdom that God should be giving a husband, or that he should be receiving, is I understand from created order that I need help, which means I'm going to posture my heart and posture my attitude toward my wife as one of humility.
Right.
Submit to each other out of reverence for Christ, Paul says in Ephesians. And so one of our operating systems has been, if you see something, say something.
True.
And then I'll say, now I might not respond to it well. So let's budget for some flesh, but stick with it, stay with me, and give me some chance. And I want to increasingly grow in how I respond, and then you can grow in how you approach. And so I think early on, you would maybe two errors, either not say something. For us, we've talked about that. There was a hole in our boat, and you were like, well, I don't want to bother him. And I'm like, but we're sinking.
Yeah.
And so for the wife out there who's prone maybe not to say something, you're actually inhibiting your husband's ability to lead if you're not telling him. So speak up.
Right.
The other side, if you've tried and he's defensive, to the husband, I would say, if you get defensive when your wife is trying to do her God-given duty, you're actually resisting God. You're being defensive against, like God's trying to help you. God's like, hey, you're running toward a cliff. Stop talking to me.
Right.
You're gonna fall off a cliff. I don't want to hear it. You're going to die.
Right.
And so it behooves the husband, as an expression of humility and wisdom, to listen to what his wife has to say. And maybe she does it in a way that you feel critical. Well, then be an adult and say, gonna be honest, babe, I'm wrestling with responding in the flesh right now. I don't want to.
Yeah.
But that made me feel attacked.
Yes.
Maybe it's because I'm insecure. Maybe it's because I didn't get a little red wagon when I was a kid. I don't know. But
or you're tired. We've had this conversation before.
Yes.
You've said to me, I don't think I can talk about this right now. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sometimes
now what?
I need more bandwidth to be more mature. I'm like, I wish I was more mature right now. I'm just too tired. Give me a minute.
Yeah.
And so we put a pin in it.
Yes, we
okay,
have.
Sharon's got something she's seen. She wants to talk to me about. I need to get to a place where I can be godly enough to receive it. So the whole ship I'm supposed to be captaining can benefit from it.
Right.
So we've done that. And I think you've grown in the way you approach me, where I feel less attacked and less critiqued and less job performanced and more helped.
Okay.
And I'm going to be honest, man. Guys, we can be petty and defensive. I'm sounding all pastoral and mature. Just so our listening audience is clear, I can be as petty as any guy out there.
Yes.
And I need to affirm it.
Well, I was agreeing. I'm just like agreeing, in general with the
We can edit
things
that out
you're
later.
saying.
Yeah.
The
No,
things
and so
you're
I
saying.
can be petty and defensive
Yes.
and not receive it. But what often happens most of the time is I'll get defensive in the moment, either my attitude or internally. But then the Lord will convict me after we leave and be like, you know what? She was right. And the more I sit on it, the more I realize, gosh, that is wisdom. And I end up coming back to you. I don't always get it right in the moment.
Nobody does.
I'm working harder at closing the gap between my
Yes.
response in the flesh, and my response to the spirit. But
Yes.
it's not always right.
Yes.
But I'm committed to it.
Yes.
And so to close this question,
Yes.
if you're a man out there that's continually resisting God's attempt to help you, you're an idiot. And you need to repent, and you need to tell your wife, I don't think I've been open to the Spirit of God helping me through you as much as I should be, and that's foolishness. I want to be more wise. This is what I'm going to endeavor to do.
Yep.
Ask you more regularly what you think or what you see, and respond with more humility when you point those things out, because I want you doing your job. And a husband should not make a wife feel guilty for obeying Jesus.
That was good. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I should be pointing at me.
That was good.
Sorry.
All
A husband
husbands
should not
out there.
make his wife feel guilty for obeying Jesus, and he shouldn't make her job hard.
Right.
That might be one way to look at it. Husbands, God has given your wife to you as your primary helper.
Yeah.
And many times I think the Holy Spirit's going to speak to you through your tangible helper, which is your wife. Don't make her job of obeying Jesus hard.
Yes.
You should be helping her as a part of your headship and leadership. You should be helping her do her job better, which in part is helping you.
That's good.
And it's not always critiquing and pointing things out. It's she can affirm, she can encourage,
Yes.
she can do those things too. So
Yeah. No, that was good.
to the wife, I would simply say, be honest with your husband. I want to be a good helper, but sometimes I feel stuck because I'm not sure how to do it. So don't go to the husband with a particular critique or way you want to help him. Have a conversation with the husband about helping in general.
Not in wartime. We've talked about that a lot before.
Yeah, not
in the middle
wartime.
of a moment when you're trying to bring something up.
Yeah.
Hey, babe, I really need you to respond well. And by the way, I wanted to bring these 4 things up. Like that can't be the duo,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, your job is to be humble. And by the way, here's 10 ways you suck.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Not a good combo.
Yeah.
So if there's a way to bring it up when there's peace and you guys can talk about it calmly.
Yeah, have a conversation
yeah.
about it that's not directly related to something specific.
Yes.
Say, hey, can I talk about how I can do my job better at some point in time? Okay, great. Sit down and go like, okay, I have nothing specific in mind, but I do want to help you be better and grow stronger.
That's good.
And how would you like me to do that? Do you think you have blind spots? And if I see those, what should I do?
There you go. Yeah.
And just ask him. And then pray
That he says yes.
that
I
the
have blind
Lord
spots.
that the Lord gives him wisdom. And if not, then tell him, hey, could we meet with a pastor, or could we meet with a wise, godly couple that you admire, and we could ask them how they do this.
Yeah. That's good.
Yep. Awesome. Okay.
Great.
Can we move on?
Yeah.
These are hard questions. I'm going to ask you a question. Question number 2.
Okay.
I am a wife who is really struggling with this idea of submission. I'm going to be honest. I don't like it, but I want to understand it. Any help would be greatly appreciated.
Ooh. Yep. Well, you're not alone, whoever this is writing this, because I think this is, we talk about this. You've talked about it in every sermon. This is Genesis 3. Oh, it's understandable that you would be struggling with this idea of submission.
Yeah.
Because
That's
it
a part of the curse.
started at the beginning. It's
Yes.
a part of the curse. So it's
That's
going to be
good.
something you have to know is going to be a challenge
Yes.
that you have to fight.
That's good.
Well, first thing I'd say is we actually talked about this quite a bit at our women's conference last year.
Okay.
So for all the gals listening, like if you need a reminder of what a helper is actually, and some of those, like we went on a deep dive last year at our women's conference. And so if you want to hop on, you can get on our resource page and look at that. Yeah.
Where could they get that?
They can get it on our
Talking to my production guys.
on our
here.
resource page at No Women. You can talk to me. I know where it is. Yes.
Thank you, helper.
I'm here. Yes.
Okay.
So if they go to our website or our app, you can go to where it says women and you click on it and there's a spot there that says resource page and all the talks from our conference are there.
Good.
So ladies, if you want to deep dive, you can go there. And we do actually talk more about submission there on our talks, especially the one on helper warrior, which is one of our roles. So I would say there's another spot you can start there as far as just like filling your mind with what the word says about it.
Yep.
Submission is challenging because I feel like it is, the word itself gets pretty misconstrued in our society. And I think you made it clear that biblical headship and being a biblical helper is not submission one woman to all men, right? So let's just be clear there. This is only this wife to her own husband, right? So this isn't trying to point out that men are here and women are here and they need to all submit. So that's baseline, but let's just be clear that that's not what this is saying.
Yep.
And so I wonder if there's a dislike for this because maybe she's seen it lived out poorly or in an abusive way or in an incorrect way, where there is an expectation that the wife's supposed to just cow to anything or do whatever she's told. And that also is not what this is saying here. There's a great quote from, I believe it was Piper, and he talks about what submission is. Actually, I think I have it. Hold on. There's a great quote that I talked about it actually in my talk on being a warrior helper.
Great.
It wasn't from Piper, but it was from Desiring God. And it just says, submission is not the fruit of a weak-willed wife, but of a courageous wife who hopes in God. Which I thought was a wonderful way to put that, in the fact that submission is not easy. It is difficult. But I would also encourage this woman to realize that the call to submission is right here in the text multiple times. And so in your own heart, it's like, do you want to value what God values?
Yeah.
Do you want to value what he tells us we are supposed to be about? There probably are a lot of things in this word that you maybe don't like. There potentially could be things that you don't think you want to do that are a part of God's design. But I think
it's a word in the Bible.
It is.
So we have to figure it out.
And make sure that we understand it. So as far as not liking it,
So let me do this.
Yeah.
I gave a definition of helpmateship and submission in my sermon.
Yeah.
I have it right here.
Okay, yes.
So biblical helpmateship, and I can't remember if this is my own definition or it's a compilation of other guys. So if I grab this from other people, whoever you are, thank
combo,
you.
Yes.
It's the divine calling of a wife to respect, affirm, and support her husband's headship. And then I broke it down to desire, will, and disposition. Her heart's desire is to use her skill set to help his leadership succeed. Her inclination of will is to always say yes to his leadership. And her disposition is one of wanting to receive, support, and encourage his initiative.
Yeah.
Now, where the art comes in is she has a higher obligation or call to submit to Jesus.
Correct.
As he is submitting to Jesus. And so part of the word submit that you referred to is it's a word in our day that communicates value. So if you're submitted to something, then you're of lesser value.
Right.
Well, that's a postmodern third wave feminist worldview. Like that's not
what's here.
What in the text, because we see multiple times Jesus submitted to the Father, where he says, "I do nothing but that which I hear my Father say and tell me to do."
Yeah.
And we see multiple instances where Jesus himself submits himself to the will of the Father in the garden. You know, if it be okay with you, I'd prefer not doing this.
Yes.
But not my will, but yours be done. And so Jesus infuses this idea of submission with great dignity and honor by being one who is submitted himself. And so all of us can grow in our embracing of submission in general, because that's part of the Christian life. I mean, one of the marks of the pagan or of the unbeliever or the one far from God is an unwillingness to submit, a stubbornness, a rebelliousness, a pridefulness that says, no, I want to rule my own life. And so I'm not saying that's this woman.
Right.
But in general, as followers of Jesus who are filled with the Spirit, we need to be growing in our love for submission, not in a doormat way that just lets people run over us, and we just roll over for tyrants, and we just allow abuse. No. There's a strength.
Yes.
I mean, Jesus wasn't a wimp.
Right.
Jesus wasn't a squish. He was the embodiment of strength, and so you can be strong and be submitted at the same time. And what makes this difficult is when you have a lazy, abdicating husband, or you have a heavy-handed, domineering husband, where the thought is, if I submit to him, I'm going to make myself vulnerable and put myself in an unsafe position.
Yeah.
And so to speak to that just very clearly, the Bible is assuming both husband and wife are submitted to the lordship of Jesus.
Right.
And then in 1 Peter, when Peter says, hey, if your husband isn't submitted to the lordship of Jesus, then here's how you respond. You pray for him. You cultivate inner beauty and quiet strength that your witness might win him over. And so now you're exercising more wisdom than him because you've submitted to the king and he hasn't. Now you're on mission. Now you're a missionary to try to win him over. That doesn't mean you participated in his sin or perpetuate his sin or follow him in his sin. It means you follow Jesus, and then as you are able, you submit to and follow your husband's leadership as well. I don't know if that answered her question very well. Did you have anything more to say about that?
Well, I just think what you were saying about both needing to be submitted to Christ. I guess I just want to make sure that this word isn't like the bad word. Like, we are called as Christians to be submitted to Christ.
Yes.
So she should already be practicing this. So the concept of submission to her husband
is an overflow.
Of her heart submitted to Christ.
Yeah.
And in being submitted to Christ, that means to his instructions and his design and what he says is good and right and how he says these things should be lived out. And so even if your heart can't quite understand how this works to your husband, you know that this is what's clear in Scripture.
That's good.
And that's what it says. And so you start with making sure your own heart is submitted to Christ. Maybe part of your struggle with being submitted to your husband is like, is my heart, I had a great conversation with a dear friend who struggled with this for many, many years. Yeah. And was super strong, and I'm woman, hear me roar, high on the super successful.
Yeah.
Was a woman, professionally competent.
Started her own business.
All the things. And this was a really hard concept for her. Yeah. And when she learned, oh man, my heart.
Are you talking about Jen?
Yes.
Okay. Because her testimony is in a video. So we're not, so she's like, tactical medic on the SWAT team, has her own stand-up business.
Unbelievable.
Like pack an AR, shoot a pistol, run dudes over,
stuff done.
Get crap done.
Yes.
Yeah, like hardcore.
And the idea of submitting to her husband was one of the hardest
Jen,
things.
if you're out there, we love you.
Shout out.
Go watch Chris and Jen's story
It's
our
true.
story on YouTube. It's an incredible, she is very, very articulate.
Yes,
she's
about
a teacher,
this.
she's an instructor, so when she got this concept, she can really impart it well.
Yeah, and the big takeaway was I wasn't submitted to Christ. I wasn't understanding that that's first.
Ooh, that's good.
And then the Lord opened her heart to be able to submit to her husband.
Yes.
And so I guess that would be my encouragement too. Make sure you understand submission for what it actually is, and that it has to start with your submission to Christ.
That's good, babe.
There you go.
It starts with a heart of openness to Christ. And here's what I would say too: the desire of the will and the disposition is one of, maybe a different way to say it is humility. I'm here. I want to help. I want to serve. I'm ready to follow and make you stronger. And that's a position of humility. And sometimes when it's like, I don't want to do that, it's because you're working from a position of pride, not humility.
Yeah.
Awesome, babe.
Just a
Great
thought
job.
there. That's good.
And if that still don't help, just call Jen Foreman. She'll help you.
She'll
She's
help
awesome.
you. And she actually shared her testimony at our conference too, and talked just about this. So after our Warrior Helper, so you can find that.
Yeah.
All right, here's for you. What did you notice? What did you notice in dating Sharon that demonstrated inner beauty and quiet strength? Fun one. This is fun.
Oh, so long ago.
Here we go. Oh, come on now.
No, I'm kidding. Inner beauty. Okay. Well,
this is from 1 Peter.
Okay. Yeah.
Right, which is one of my favorite texts, by the way.
Yeah. So for context,
I got it right here.
For context, I said the wife's sacred calling is completion, that of completing a husband who's lacking. That's Genesis.
Yes.
To be his helper, completer. The wife's specific focus is one of respect.
Yep.
So you complete your husband. One way you do that was with respect from Ephesians 5. And then the wife's secret weapon was that of inner beauty and quiet strength. And that comes from 1 Peter 3. So back to our question. What did I observe? What's the question again?
It is, what did you notice in dating Sharon?
Oh, man.
That demonstrated inner beauty and quiet
How much time do we
strength?
have?
That's right. That's right.
That's my favorite topic.
Just the rest of the time should just be on this. It'll be great.
Well, I'll try to exercise self-control and restraint. Okay, so I'm at college, George Fox University. I'm a junior. Sharon's a junior. I got invited to a volleyball game. Never been to a volleyball game in my life, but I went because I didn't know anybody. And I showed up, and I immediately noticed there's a packed gym, D3 at the time, college volleyball game. Immediately noticed one particular player dominating the entire court, number 12. And I've said this publicly before. She could wear her uniform.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with inner beauty and quiet strength.
Well, but I liked it. Anyways, so very proficient and capable in the athletic realm. And then I went to chapel the next day, and that same radiantly, wildly beautiful, dark-skinned, Indian toned skin. What do you like? 16th Cherokee, whatever. Just that Native American, vibe.
Yes.
Long brown hair. Now she's singing like an angel, leading worship in front of the whole student body. And then I found out, she's a triple major. And then I found out, all these things like this woman is amazing. What was the question again?
Inner beauty, quiet strength.
Oh, okay. Inner beauty. Well, yeah. Okay. So when I decided to go on the hunt, I
to pursue me. This is before we were dating, by the way. What I think you're going to say.
Yeah. Well, the analogy was like, okay, I've been on the ridge line spotting all of these does.
Careful.
And now, I found one I want to go get.
Okay.
Now I'm 2,000 yards away. I got to close the gap.
Right.
And so I wanted to. I didn't want you to know I was closing the gap until I was within kill range.
This is a terrible analogy. This is horrible.
And so I had to be stealth. And so I started making friends with girls who were your friends. Right. And I'm sorry if you're listening, that was one of you. I think some of them probably thought there was interest there. There wasn't. But I was basically using them for intel. No. Okay. And so I got to know your roommates, and then I would subtly insert in a conversation. I'd be like, hey, I'm new on campus. What about so-and-so and so-and-so? And I wouldn't just come right out and say, tell me about this Sharon Barnett.
Right.
I would mix you in almost accidentally with other girls.
Yes,
and I would almost feign interest
suave.
on, tell me about Rachel. Like, she seems pretty cool. And then I would find a way to kind of accidentally back into, asking a question about you. And every time your name came up, these young ladies, I'm going to get emotional, they lit up. And I'm talking to tall girls, short girls. I'm talking to skinny girls. I'm talking to fat girls. I'm talking to popular girls. I'm talking to wallflower girls. And every one of them, to the woman, said, Sharon is the most kindest woman I know. She's so sweet. I have her in this class. I sit next to her in this class. She always shares her notes with me. She always writes me encouraging letters. She's the most incredible person to be around. And I knew two things. Number one, girls are insanely jealous. And all of those girls had every reason to talk bad about you or make you look bad to me because you had everything going. And so for a girl to go out of her way to speak well of a woman who's already kind of just by nature of athletic ability and beauty, kind of at the top of the pack, so to speak, I was like, wow, that speaks highly of her character. And I'll never forget one short, little portly lady was just like, Sharon is the most genuine, loving person I've ever met. And she pulled out of her bag a card that you had written her to encourage her. And I thought, well, if this woman who has all the records and has all the attention on the volleyball court and the track field and gets up and leads worship every week in front of the student body and has every guy wishing he could figure out a way to get on her dance card, if she's writing notes to girls, encouraging them, she's not threatened by them. She's there to bless them because of the inner beauty, and that girls that weren't maybe quote unquote as attractive in the world's eyes,
right,
that they weren't threatened by you, but they were drawn to you and encouraged by you, for me really spoke to that inner beauty. So that's how I observed that. So you rock.
Thanks.
I love you. You're amazing.
Thank
and
you.
then the quiet strength, you were just, I mean, you were a woman of character. You had standards. You weren't dating boys. It was well known on campus that you hadn't kissed a boy, not because you were spreading rumors, but because the guys had tried and you turned them down and the rumor spread. You had sexual standards. You had a dates with Jesus where you would just like go be with the Lord alone and people would find out about it. And again, you weren't spreading these things about yourself.
Yeah.
But there were opportunities for you to cave where you didn't, and you stood out from the pack. You didn't go along with the flow. You weren't just one of the girls, going with the flow of youthful immaturity. You were standing on your own. You knew who you were. You were confident in your identity in Jesus, and you were going somewhere.
Yeah.
And that was just remarkably attractive to me.
Yeah.
And so, and you haven't stopped. You're
Thank
still
you.
that woman to this day.
Oh, man.
I love
Next
you.
question.
You
I love
are
you too.
hot. Okay.
Wow.
I feel like I crushed that question.
Great job. I don't know how helpful that was for anyone, except that it was fun for you.
We're going to ask that question every week.
Every time.
Okay.
All right, here you
this
go.
is from a single gal.
Yes. Okay. Oh, you're asking.
Yeah.
You're going. Okay.
This is from a single gal, and she's
Okay.
asking you,
Alrighty.
as an extroverted and outgoing young single woman, can you please elaborate on what it might look like practically for me to show quiet strength in a marriage with a man who could be similar or perhaps more introverted than me?
Great question. This girl is outgoing, it says, extroverted.
Yes.
Which, just for
guessing.
clarification, I was as well. Like,
Oh, yeah, you were a
in
leader.
college, I wasn't like always
wallflower.
quiet. I guess I love this text because it does talk about a quiet strength, but it does use the word strength. And
Yeah,
that
you were like the loudest on court. Like when your team scored a point, you were like, "Wah!" and you brought everybody in and
Right.
cheered and loud and slapped them on the bum and went back to the whatever.
Right.
And you were very verbal.
Right. Yeah.
You weren't obnoxious.
Yes. So extroverted and outgoing. Well, it sounds like she's single, so she's not married yet. So we're not sure who she's going to be with. Her husband might be similar, like she says, or more introverted. You talked about this briefly, but quiet strength and inner beauty are not personality traits.
Yeah.
They're not dependent on whether you're extroverted or introverted.
Yeah.
They're not dependent on whether or not you are naturally bubbly and outgoing, or if you'd rather kind of keep to yourself. They may look a little bit different depending on your personality. But for this gal, I would say, man,
I have a thought. So
you do. Okay. Do you want to give it is it on the front of your brain?
well, I don't want to lose it. So if you're
Go
if you
for it. No,
a point you wanna
I
make-
got stuff, but go.
Well,
Do it.
No, you let her rip.
No.
What?
You're ready.
Oh,
Fire.
What I was going to say
Yes.
was
I'll take a drink of coffee.
it is not attractive to a dude when you're just like a chatterbox. And so like I have observed single young ladies, and I'm like, if you don't shut up, you're not gonna get a date, let alone a husband. And if you do get a husband, it's probably because he's just desperate for a woman. And he's like, well, at least she'll take me if I listen to her. Like if you're super verbal, ratchet it back.
Okay.
Have some self-awareness.
Okay.
Ask your mom and dad or a friend. If you're just like, I mean, like I've been around single ladies recently, and I'm listening to them talk, and like the subject matter of their conversation is shallow.
Yes.
They're talking about things that don't matter. And if
Yeah.
I was a dude just observing, I'd be like, yeah, no, cross that one off the list.
Right.
Because most dudes don't want to fill their time with pointless talk about who's dating who,
Sure.
and did you hear what happened to Jennifer Aniston and Joe or
That
whoever
just dated you.
Okay. Well, who are the young kids following today? That
It doesn't
Taylor
matter.
Fast.
Anyway, it doesn't
Taylor-
matter.
Taylor
No, that was
Quick,
actually one thing I
Taylor
was going to
Swift.
talk about was actually cultivating inner beauty and quiet strength as an extroverted, outgoing person is still the same thing in that you are working on your one and only important relationship, and that's with Jesus.
Yeah.
The only way to cultivate inner beauty and quiet strength is if you are spending time with the Lord,
Yeah.
if you are in the Word, if
Yeah.
you are letting it transform your heart and mind,
Yes.
if you are growing in what it looks like to be a daughter of the King, to be a woman who follows Jesus, like
Yeah.
whether you're extroverted or introverted,
Right.
that is the one place to focus,
Yeah.
to start. From that overflow then, as you speak, whether it's extroverted or introverted, the topics you talk about, the things that keep your interest, what you want to be a part of, those are going to be from the overflow of what you're studying, Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be more, your conversations are going to be more
substantive.
Yes, that's a great word. I was going to say they're going to have more depth. They're going to be about things that matter.
Yeah.
And so I guess for this young gal, for you practically, what it would look like for you to show quiet strength. Yes, maybe sometimes that means don't talk as much. Listen a little more. If you're going to get to know a guy, you're going to have to ask some more questions. Like become a student of others. I don't think there's any reason why it couldn't go the same way as you did with me.
Yeah.
Start asking questions of guys and some people around, you know?
Yeah, I would say too, we're not asking girls, we're not telling girls to curb your personality. You should be who God made you.
Fun, outgoing.
Oh,
sounds like this girl's a blast.
It's a party. Yeah,
Yes.
totally.
Yes.
And this is a varsity pro tip, ladies.
Okay.
There is something attractive to men about mystery.
True.
So when you dress like a $2 hooker,
Bummer.
you're lowering the amount of mystery there is for a man. It's like there's no mystery here. It's all there.
Yeah.
And you may think it's attractive, but it will only attract the kind of dude that you think it would attract.
Right.
So take that principle in the physical realm, relationship to modesty, and look at it in terms of your womanhood. There should be some mystery. I'm not saying you suppress your personality or just go around and you're all just, you're just this one big mystery box. You're one big.
You don't ever answer questions. Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
You can't be like that.
Yeah, but you were a mystery. There were things you held back. There were things that you didn't, that like I could tell were in you, but you weren't sharing them openly. And so then that created in me like I want to pursue that. I want to figure out how to
ask more questions,
open that up and get at that. And so if you're just dominating a conversation and you're talking over every dude and you're never asking a question, I'm telling you, any dude that's watching from a distance probably won't make the decision to close the gap on that option.
Got it.
He's going to be looking for someone with a little more mystery. That's just a pro tip. You might disagree with that.
No.
That's your prerogative.
Guy's perspective. That's good.
That's just from one guy to all the single women out there.
That's right. But a reminder.
Feel free to ignore.
Yes. Quiet
we should move on.
Does not mean extrovert or introverted.
Yes.
Just want to make sure that's clear.
If we didn't help you, sweetheart,
I know.
we'll pray for you.
I hope that's helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know.